What's going on, Duck Nation, College Football Nation? This is UODuckBros back for another video. This is kind of an interesting thing to talk about.
It's not interesting. It's actually
very
troubling, angry, hypocritical.
And it's weird that this is even...
all of it.
It's weird that this is even really a story, personally.
It is because, yet again, it's about Oregon. So,
in a bad way...
Of course it's going to make news.
Go figure. So, let's talk about this, shall we? I'll let you introduce this whole little fiasco.
Well, we are going to be talking about the infamous, anonymous, and one not anonymous letter that was written to none other than John Canzano, which we all know...
of the Oregonian.
...has been quite the duck hater for... a long time.
Even though he won't admit it, even though we've all seen it for as long as we can remember.
So basically what we have here is a couple disgruntled former Oregon Duck players.
Both of which were walk-ons, by the way. They haven't confirmed who the anonymous guy is, but they're pretty sure who it is. And both of these guys were walk-ons.
So basically we have the first letter who this anonymous guy was... he was, in attendance for the UCLA game, and he was having a great time. He was at the tailgates, he was enjoying himself, he was drinking, he was eating food, having a great time.
It was his first game. It was his first game ever as a fan after being on the... He was on last year's team.
So you fast forward now, so he gets to his seat, they're watching the game, and there's some drunk people behind him. Go figure.
Yeah, so
I'm sure we've never ever been to a game and not seen drunk people before.
You know what? I'll read it to you. Let's have story time. Let me read.
We don't need to read the whole thing.
No, not the whole thing. I'm going to read the main parts of it because we already explained the opening portion of it. So let's just get to the part where he was at his seat. Let's see. Here we go. My friend and I took our seats where I soon became acquainted with the most ignorant people in all of college football. Directly behind me were a couple of drunk expletive who criticized Marcus's ability to throw the football, D'Anthony's ability to run the football, the lineman's ability to block, and the coach's ability to analyze film and call plays. After hearing so much ignorant expletive, I turned around to tell the fans to chill the expletive out. Marcus had overthrown a receiver on a tough play, and the spectator made comment, "Hey Marcus, throw it inbounds, dumbass," in which I finally had enough and turned around and asked if he would like to get down there and take Marcus's place. The man responded, no. Then I asked if we were all still rooting for Oregon, in which he responded in an aggressive, irrelevant, and incoherent manner. So I decided to discontinue the conversation I had started with him. And then, after that, he goes on to say, I was then verbally attacked by other spectators saying, You need to keep your expletive mouth shut because you don't know expletive about football. They claimed that I didn't know that they had coached college football and that I had no idea what I was talking about. Blah, 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 blah. Not too long after, a woman a couple of seats down yelled for 10 minutes straight, which I don't know if I believe that or not, about how the players were playing like expletive, the coaches were being expletive, the refs were being expletive. All during the time I was telling my friend how embarrassing it was to have her on our side, and then I started hearing laughter from the surrounding crowd and encouragement of that behavior. And then, a little bit further on, they don't really make mention of it here, but then he went on this weird parallel of talking about how being a player was like being a slave. Like, he compared it to like the show Spartacus, where, pretty much saying that they're slaves and, like, they're only out there, busting their ass all day long for our pitiful enjoyment, essentially, is what he was getting at. So
he obviously has a different view of football than most of the other players do, and obviously there's a reason. I don't know whether it was because he was a walk-on, he didn't play, whether it was...
Well, he didn't play, because the alleged person who this was, his name was Dane Ibanez. He was a wide receiver. His number was, like, 91. I don't think that he really ever got on the field much at all.
And I don't really know what the motive is. I'm not going to guess, but I just think, for a person like this to release something so stupid before the biggest game of Oregon's season thus far, knowing as a player, whether he was a walk-on or a starter or whatever his role was, what their policy is about, controversy and all that stuff and media stuff. For him to release something like this, I think, is a little bit ill-timed and just irresponsible.
Well, and the more upsetting thing about it, outside of the fact that he's a player and he should know better, or that he was a player and should know better than to throw everybody under the bus like that, he's generalizing an entire fan base off of an experience he had with one section of one football game.
And it wasn't even an entire section. It was
like 10...
A handful of people.
Yeah, it was like 10 people.
And I'm going to tell you one thing. You can go across the entire country, and I don't care whether it's pro or college or high school.
Yeah, you could go to a Husky game.
It does not matter. I have been to Husky Stadium. I have been to numerous Oregon games. I've been to OSU games.
Research Stadium.
I have been to San Francisco 49er games, Seattle Seahawks games.
We watched the Arizona game where
I'm going to tell you right now,
threw, full water bottles at our cheerleaders and hit one of them in the face.
I don't understand how, because of something like this that, for whatever reason, is somehow a story, which this shouldn't be a story because this is something that happens, unfortunately, everywhere, and no matter what sport it is, even in soccer around the world or wherever. This happens everywhere, and I hate that it's just, our Oregon fans getting out of control, our Oregon fans unruly, our Oregon fans this and that. It is not about just Oregon fans, and it's not even about the fan base. It's about a certain group of people
that are in every stadium in America.
And no, I am not defending what they are doing. I'm just saying that it is unavoidable. And for a person like this, whether it was, it's his first game, for him to automatically say that that's just, his experience is completely ruined now, and that he can't believe that there are people there that drink and get drunk and say things like that. I mean, you would have to be the most gullible person, the most naive person on the planet to think that you're going to go to a place like that and you're not going to hear one person that thinks he's an expert or one person that thinks that they know more about college football than the people down on the field. It's everywhere. And I can't stand how all these little fan bases now are jumping on the bandwagon, trying to pile on, saying that, Oregon's the worst. Duck fans are, the worst in the Pac-12.
And then all the horror stories came out about their experience.
It's so dumb. It's like, well, where were all these horror stories before? Oh, well, they weren't, because now you're just making stuff up. So, and then we'll go on to the second one now, because this just came out today.
Yeah, this is another one it's almost... The thing that really bothers me more about the first one than the second one is that he goes out and he throws the entire fan base under the bus, saying that they can go fuck themselves, essentially. And he goes through all that and he won't even release his name. He goes as anonymous.
Not to mention the fact that if you listen to what we read, he's sitting there saying that what he was so angry about was the foul language and,
the unruly behavior,
and yet his entire letter, for the most part, was filled with expletives.
Just everywhere.
And for the premise of the entire letter was for us to go F ourselves and whatnot. Now, to me, that automatically makes the letter not credible. A, because you won't release who you are, and B, because
of the way he went
about saying it, and the way you were attacking a fan base that was based off of an experience you had with a handful of people.
And just let's get this out of the way, because I really am, and especially saying this at the UCLA game, where he talks about how our student section is like one of the worst in the country. Did he forget that the entire student section during the UCLA game were wearing blue ribbons on their shirts honoring the UCLA wide receiver who got killed in a car crash earlier this year? There were numerous signs out in the stands of people that were putting up ducks for number 30. I think his number was 34.
I mean, how in the world can you say that about a fan base?
That we're just a bunch of terrible people.
If we were really that overzealous, we wouldn't have taken the time, and we would have been. I mean,
they would have been making fun of that instead of showing support for it.
And not to mention, you can go on YouTube and you can look at it all you want to because it's there. I've seen it. There is a 2 or 3 minute video of the Tennessee fans that came to the Oregon game and were talking about their experience from their point of view, and they had nothing but good things to say. They were treated well. They had a great time. Oregon fans were very nice. They were treated to drinks and food the whole time they were there. They didn't pay for anything. So I don't, I understand if you're disgruntled because you're upset that you didn't get to watch the game without hearing curse words and people thinking that they're experts about college football.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that it's fair for a person to throw an entire fan base under the bus because he doesn't know or has never been to a game before to know what the environment's like.
It sounded to me like it was a situation where that was his first experience as a fan anywhere.
He said it was his very first game as a fan, so I don't know if it's just his first Duck game.
I think he was meaning as his first Duck game after being a player.
Yeah, but you know what? The second one wasn't as bad because the person was essentially saying that he at least didn't just generalize and use a blanket statement for the entire fan base. He basically said, in his opinion, he felt that the students were the spoiled ones. They were the ones that were entitled and acting ridiculous.
Well, let's check into this one. I'll read a couple excerpts from this one too, because there were plenty of parts of this that were equally as as soon as you read it, you just shake your head in disgust. So here's this one for you. I read the letter written by the former Ducks football player and found myself nodding in agreement. I played on the team as a walk-on for the 2010 Rose Bowl team. I graduated from the University of Oregon in August, attend all of the home games, and count Duck football Saturdays as my favorite days of the year. But it is my belief that Duck fans, particularly the students, so he's actually still saying both of them, not just the students, but he's saying
it's really the students,
have become so self-entitled and spoiled with the team's success that I often find myself telling people that Oregon has one of the worst student fan bases in the country. I first became jaded towards the student body's support of the team following the loss to the Toby Gerhart-led Stanford team at the Farm in 2009. Everyone I talked to following the big upset over Cal and the Halloween win over USC had nothing but praise for where the team was headed. Students associating themselves with the team's efforts by using the term "we" as if they had an integral part in the hard-fought victory. I didn't think of it much at the time up until that loss in November. On the following Monday, people were not saying "we" played a bad game. It was saying they played horrible, as if now they no longer wanted to be associated as a member of the team. A friend of mine said something along those lines, and I called him out, stating that A, Stanford was a very good football team, and B, his only obligations he had to the football program were when he woke up Saturday mornings and started drinking. He was not at the facilities from 7 to 11:30 a.m. Monday through Friday, busting his expletive in preparation for the next opponent. He was not heading back to the Casanova Center after classes every night at 6 p.m. for film and team meetings. I believe that students act this way because they have no idea how hard the entire process is to win a college football game and the sheer amount of man-hours and preparation it takes to do so. If they did, they would applaud the team for their hard-fought effort in defeat instead of criticizing facets of the game in which they truly, from a football standpoint, do not understand. And this is where it really starts to bother me. Outside of that part too, it's like we understand that you have to work really hard for this stuff. We're not just saying that it's nothing.
It's not. We're not discrediting all of the work that you have to do. We're not doing that at all. And for wherever you felt slighted about how Oregon fans were happy one minute and sad the next. I can't speak for everybody, but I can speak for certain, unfortunately there are those too that jump on and jump off. Those aren't real Duck fans. Those are just, I'm going to school here. I became a Duck fan while I was here.
There are bandwagon fans. When you have a team that has a lot of success like that, you're going to get those. That's how it is.
But you know what? Just to sum up this Cal section, he was at the Cal game. And it was the game that was the torrential downpour, and he made reference to the fact that the student section
at halftime
was completely empty except for a handful of people. Well, I'm going to tell you something. I don't know a lot of people that would be willing to stand with their shirts off or whatever was going on in the student section in a torrential downpour with 50-mile-an-hour gusts of wind.
Where you're basically, if you do stay out there, you're basically staring pneumonia straight in the face.
My parents were at the game, and my wife was at the game, my mother-in-law was at the game, and they left in the third quarter because they were absolutely so cold that they couldn't stand it anymore, and they had ponchos and everything. I don't expect kids that have no shirts on or that have very little preparation for this type of weather to stay there for the entire game.
Or even the ones who are properly dressed. I mean, you think about that game outside of the fact that it was the biggest downpour we've had at the stadium in a long time, and the game was a blowout.
And we know that it's a privilege to watch Oregon football, especially where it is. And that's not denying that Oregon and where they are is a very special thing, and we're not discrediting anybody for their hard work that they put in, because we appreciate it. Obviously,
it's an absolute spectacle of the human achievement, pretty much.
But basically what we are saying is that these letters
need to stop.
They just, okay, I understand. There could probably be millions of these that are written daily or every weekend, because I'm sure that there's that type of stuff going on everywhere. The whole point of this is really, without getting into this too much, because we've already been going at it. We've been going at it for 15 minutes here. Oregon is in a rare place right now. They're making a run at a national championship, and I just found the timing very odd that these two players, especially being former players and knowing the ins and outs of how Oregon does things, that they would come out with crap like this. Because this is a non-story. I know that it's being brought up right now and it's being printed in local newspapers.
But it shouldn't be.
But this is a non-story, because this is something that goes on everywhere. And I think that for anybody to say that this is somehow an isolated thing, and it's only happening at Oregon, it's only Oregon's fan base, is absolutely A, either a troll, or B, somebody that absolutely is the most naive person on the planet. Because I'll tell you, I'm not just saying this because I'm an Oregon fan. It happens everywhere. I don't really know what else to say. I'm extremely disappointed, and I'm saddened that they had a bad experience like that. I don't want anybody to go to a game and have a bad experience, but for them to just sit there and say that we're all these horrible people, ignorant people that don't appreciate what they're doing, or that are ignorant and just belligerent idiots, I think that's just an absolute I think that's horrible to say. Mm-hmm. I think it's not fair to all of the people that are paying thousands of dollars every single year to support the university. I think it's unfair for all of the people that are there in the rain that did stay, and you're just generalizing them and saying that they're also part of that group of people. I just think that it's just an unfair statement in general, and I'm really disappointed that these two players felt that they needed to come out with something like this in the middle of the season,
with the biggest
game of the season on the line. It's
week.
Just a distraction, and they should know better than anybody that distractions are not what this team needs.
Like, if they're gonna do it, then you're gonna do it, but at least wait until the season's over before you say something like this.
And really, to be honest with you, I don't even know what the motivation was behind it, but it just seems to me like,
because this is not the kind of thing where you write the letter and they publish it and all the fans are gonna be like, oh, yeah, you know what? I think he's right. Maybe we should.
You're going to get so many people that are going to be. All it's going to
be is kind of what's going on right now. Is you get fans are going to be really pissed about this, because for the people that aren't acting like total jackasses out there, because there are people that do that, but for the vast majority, people aren't being like that. And you're pretty much saying, even though you've never even seen the people essentially that you're calling out, you're saying that all of them are like these few people that you saw.
I think that's just absolutely horrible. I think it's deplorable, and I just cannot stand. I can't stand the fact that he's essentially saying that I'm one of those people.
And that I'm one of those people.
There are plenty of wonderful people that go to those games that have kids and have families and, enjoy going there and watching a game, that are completely normal people.
Harmless as could be.
That don't need to sit there and get drunk. And, for those that do, that's their prerogative. But
and these two kids are calling them out, too, saying that they're just a bunch of ignorant, spoiled assholes, essentially. And it's just wrong.
And I don't even want to harp on this too much longer, because we've already done it. We've been doing it way too long, but essentially this didn't need to happen, but it needed to be discussed, and that's what we did. And I think it's time to move on. Hopefully there's nothing else that comes from this. I hope that this is just isolated stuff that eventually just goes away. But with that being said, thanks for listening. This is probably the only rant that you'll get from us all year long. So
unless something outrageous comes up like this again, then we might address it. But
we'll put this one to bed now. But it definitely needed to be discussed. So with that said, thanks for watching.
This is UODuckBros. Leave us your thoughts about this entire debacle in the comments section down below. And we kind of want to see what you guys think about it. Do you take the side of what they're saying, or do you take the side of more than likely everybody else?
Yeah, like from a fan's perspective. So
give us
positive or negative. We don't care. We just want to hear what you have to say. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. As always,
go Ducks.
Go Ducks.
Frank Dukes is awesome.
Yes.